Hey there, channel. Good morning. So this is take one of a video that I just want to put in my 2 cents about David Wilcock, his life and death, and about Corey Goode, and just my little 2 cents worth of involvement in this drama. And I just posted a video on this same date that is a podcast of Corey and Mike Barra and some other lady who's hosting it, talking about the whole situation. And it is dawn, and I am just like any one of these stalks right here, one that you may not see because it's sort of tangled up in the rest of the stalks. And some of you people are like the bigger ones that you see when you look at the plant. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I've been wanting to tell this personal story for a long time, just to record it for whatever. But I never have told it. And it does involve it does involve, oh, okay. I'm going to have to do this again in a different spot. So it's dawn. And once again, I've been up since 1:30. It's sort of a habit to do. Anyway, I shouldn't talk about that. So I got up and I've been listening to these guys talking about this stuff. And I've had my own personal viewpoints on this David, since David Wilcock passed away and what happened. And I do switch back and forth on assessments or opinions, again, because I'm not there and I'm not really close to the immediate family involved in everything. But I have been, I've known about David since the beginning, since he first spoke on George Norrie's show on Coast to Coast a long time ago. I remember hearing him then. And so that's, how far back I've been paying attention to this whole scene. But what I want to talk about is something that occurred with me personally in 2016 that has made me have respect for Corey Goode and David Wilcock in general, despite some of my personal opinions about how they might have conducted themselves or whatever. And what happened was in 2016, down here in Tucson, there was a conference in Tucson hosted by, it was a 3-day conference at one of the hotels in Tucson. And it was I can't remember the name of it, but it was hosted by Tolek, the Andromedan. So some of you, and it's too bad Tolek isn't out much in public anymore, but a lot of you guys have heard of Tolek, T-O-L-E-C. And he I'm not sure if he still is, based here in Arizona. And in fact, Tolek did an interesting interview with Jody, Jody married to Will Nutter. So that was interesting to see that. But anyway, I managed to get a barter situation to go to the event. So I worked a little bit at the front reception desk there, and I just sort of wandered around. I went alone, and I only saw 2 people that I knew there from this area that happened to be at that same conference. Stuart Swerdlow was there. He left after the first day. That was pretty cool. And it was the first time I had ever met Tolek, but I didn't really meet him because he was like pretty busy, so he didn't really talk to me, but he did vet me enough, I guess, behind the scenes, and said it was okay if I traded my entrance ticket for volunteering to work there. So I spent 3 days there, and on my way back from that event, I had been very activated and lit up, and my brain was really lit up, and I had quit. Usually when I go to events like that, I quit smoking for a week before I went and everything. So my mind was pretty clear of being affected by outside substances for those few days. And on my way back from that event, I got really lit up concerning my potential. Like I felt and saw what my potential personally was if I were to exercise that and come out more in public and develop my ability to do just that, which is dormant and latent to this day. Although in my past, in my life here, I've done things that were public and displayatory, if you want to say that. But, you know, we all have this short life to live and do different things with ourselves. So developing certain abilities of mine is in the background, but now and then it gets activated. I'm like, oh man, I could do this and that and this and that, and I see why I don't. But anyway, on that trip back home, I drove back an hour and a half from Tucson after that 3-week thing, and I saw myself being on that stage like some of the speakers were. I saw myself doing this whole thing presentation wise, using my music, using Shona music, just all this stuff. You know how it is. You get online like I am now, and people get on there, oh, I got all this stuff to say, so here I am going to say it and share it with the world because blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I had so many good ideas that when I got back to town, I made a phone call because I was going to paint this. Well, anyway, I just had all this design concept of stuff I was going to do. But at that time, I was still working full time with my disabled friend, who the only reason I was able to go to that conference was because I snuck away while he was in his week-long hospital stay, and I had to not tell him in order for me to do that. So let's just say that. So a lot of us have potential to be these big actors on the planet right now, but we are doing other things with our abilities, like helping other people. So that's what I was doing then. But anyway, I got back to the house, and I was alone at the house. And this thing happened where, and I'll put it in a nutshell just to make the video go fast, but the details are kind of not the devil in there, but that's a good story. I got back to the house with all these bright ideas and my brain just zinging away. And I wanted to kind of slow down and be able to sleep that night because I was going to be having to work the next morning, and I was so wired, And I hadn't smoked anything. I like to smoke marijuana and stuff like that, but I hadn't had anything for days and days. So in the house was somebody, we had local people making, keef and hashish and all the stuff. So it was like local stuff. But anyway, I decided to take a bath and then try to sleep. And I was just going to take this rest. So I took this bath, and then I said, I think I'm going to just smoke this one hit of this hashish over here, just to, like, what I like to do with drugs or with plant medicine is to slow myself down and be in control of that. So sometimes I don't want to be all activated. I just want to slow down and just keep staying at a certain pace and stay slow. So I did. I took this one hit of this hashish and I lay down, and I felt it right away, and I'm used to the thing like, oh, well, if you smoke or if you do any kind of drug, then that blocks your real current, within yourself, and you're not going to get accurate information about anything. I had this guilt trip about, well, I can't really, open up in a clean way if I use a substance. So I had that judgment. And I was resigned to just falling asleep that night, whatever. So I laid down, and it was probably like 4 in the afternoon already. And I had been gone for 3 days, so I turned on the internet just to hear what's new. I had just heard in 2016, by the way, about Tory Smith. And I had heard that from, hush-hush tones about it. Just saying. So anyway, I turned on the YouTube to see what's going on, and what was there was a podcast with and it kind of jumped right into my feed there. It was a podcast with David Wilcock and Benjamin Fulford. So I started listening to it, and even at that time I had, like, just, I mean, I like David in general, but sometimes, well, I think it happens when you're someone like me who has a lot of time and you listen to people over and over again, so you don't feel like you have to listen to everything they say. And so that was kind of like that. I just sort of, okay, I've heard so much of David, I kind of, get tired. But I was interested to hear what him and Benjamin would talk about, because I had respect for Benjamin Fulford as well, too, at that time. Anyway, so they started talking away. And at a certain point, Benjamin was describing, well, my eyes were closed, and he was describing a place where the Khazarian Mafia guy, this gang, he was describing the scene. And I think it was where he had encountered some of these people and he had to get away. He was describing the scene he had just been through with these bad guys or whatever. And I was just listening, but all of a sudden in my like in my frontal lobe directly, it was as if somebody had peeled a soft paper towel, like a wet, damp paper towel had been put on my forehead, and somebody is just slowly peeling it off of my forehead. And my forehead became like a movie screen, and I had no control over this. And as Benjamin was talking about the scenario he was describing, I was seeing visuals. I was seeing this, for example, this driveway with all these fir trees lining it on this dirt road that was going into this property, and I could see ahead there was this huge mansion, and the details were just coming at me, the way that people get stuff coming at them. And it was broad daylight. It was in the afternoon. I wasn't dreaming this time, because usually I get information and visuals and remote view and blah, 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 blah when I close my eyes and either deliberately focus on purpose to look, or when I go to sleep, so-called, and then the information opens up to me and I wake up and remember it, or I wake up during it. But in this case, it was broad daylight and my eyelids were shut and I was seeing everything that he was talking about. Whether it was accurate or not, I don't know, but the fact that it just came at me was like telling me, oh man, this must be what it's like for people who even make a living because they have that ability to see things, to see things that normally aren't seen. Well, as he kept talking and I kept seeing that, I started to, it's like, okay, one of the highlights of that afternoon while I'm listening to them, I think the thing shut off. I pretty much shut it off, or the dialogue ended, and I was just in the room quietly. And then I started having this experience of whatever I focused on, I was seeing visuals of everything. Whatever I was laying there thinking I wanted to know about, I would see visual answers and like whole scenarios in my mind, where I was aware all of a sudden that, oh, I can do that. I can actually do that. Here I am doing it. Like if I want to know something, I just focus on it. And this time it's effortless. Like I'm getting information like faster than I can control it. And it really was like that movie screen on my forehead kind of routine. So what happened was I went into this thing where I saw, I proceeded to pretty much like, I found myself in a position above my body and above the room I was in, and I was looking down at myself in that room, in that house, and it looked really dark and dim, and it was almost like a black and white thing, but I was looking at 3D Earth and my 3D Earth life, and I was a little bit above it. So it didn't have any really brightness to it. It was just like, there's me living in this room in this house, da-da-da. The next thing that I saw, it was as if I lifted my head to eye level, kind of like, imagine like you're floating on the ceiling and looking down at the room, but then if you look up around the the top of the room or the ceiling, what I saw was not a room, but I saw all around me these brilliant, brilliant, colorful lights, like this brilliant light show. It was kind of like what resembled a casino, like when you're inside a casino, and just all the like lights and glamoury, glittery stuff that, you know, the film industry tries to portray, or that, you know, I grew up in the Hollywood neighborhood, so it was just like this high glamour feeling and all this colorful lights. But it was like I was in this structured environment, and then my head turned to the right, and I could see, like, oh, it went way back there, and then there was this, like, throne all lit up in this way that I just can't describe the beauty of the way it was all lit up. But I was seeing, like, a throne and this entity in the throne, and guess who it was? That's right, it was, Mr. Lucifer, basically. And I saw all at once that this was his realm, that I was, like, perceiving the astral realm of this Luciferian type of beauty and light, that I was aware, or I perceived that, oh, this realm here is the dominant reality that's controlling the 3D room that I was in, that I had looked down on. So I could see all that. It was like I was seeing this astral realm on top of the 3D world, but the astral lit up world that I was looking at was just in full charge and in full control of what was going on down here and all that. So I saw that, and I was aware again. I was wide awake, but my eyelids were shut, and I could not turn it off, what I was seeing. I just couldn't turn it off. So pretty quickly after I recognized that, and I saw the dude on his throne, it was just like a casino kind of thing when you realize who's in control of, get it? Gambling. Your life is a gamble. My head looked above even that batch of lighting, and it was drawn to turn. And if I can describe turning in space, that's what it was like, because, there's turning. And right above where that throne area was, suddenly what did I see? Was this head of this blue being. It was Mr. Blue Avian or whatever. It didn't look like no chicken. It was this blue being that, after listening to Corey Good, because he had come out in 2016 by then, and I listened to some of his stuff, the Blue Avian stuff. But here I was looking at this figure, this being who was hovered above all this Luciferian light stuff, and the energy coming off this being was just beautiful love and freedom from. It had nothing, in other words, I was seeing this being that was saying, hey, look over here where we are. We're above all that too. So just know that you, meaning me, I don't have to stay stuck in this world at all, but this is what we're dealing with. But up here is where this blue guy, was resonating in that frequency on that higher level, unaffected by the lower shenanigans and unaffected by those lights. So when I saw that blue face entity, that was, for me, not looking for it, not believing in it one way or the other, but there it was the closest thing I could say, oh, maybe that was a blue avian that Corey's talking about. That's my whole point of telling this story. Because after I saw that being, I kept laying there, and I was mentally just moving around with this ability that I had. And I found out in that one afternoon that if whatever I focused on, I could get a ton of information from. and it was coming in visually, and I couldn't stop it, and it was going on for a couple hours. And I remember thinking, well, let me get up and go outside and come back in, maybe it'll go away, because I actually got afraid of it, of having that openness, and I thought, this is going to be mad if I can't turn this off, because I won't be able to function in this job. I'll have to leave sooner than I want to. I won't be, like, I'll just be off on this new career of being a seer. I saw that in me. And when I say I was afraid of it, do I mean afraid? I don't mean fear afraid. I just mean, like, whoa, do I want to be on a horse race? I haven't ridden a horse in a long time, kind of thing. And then there's the factor of how, when, and why to come out with those abilities. There's a lot of encouragement by people to, be all you can be and come all out with it. But personally, when I have, like even on this channel, when I've spoken out and exercised some of these abilities of mine, it's kind of like Lynn Buchanan said. He said, if you want to learn remote viewing so you can go find the bad guys and see what they're up to, and work with law enforcement to catch it, blah, 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 blah. He said something about, when you zero in on a situation, you're going to feel the feelings and the reality of the people you're looking in on. So you better be ready for that. If you're going to be looking for kids or missing people or whatever, you're going to emotionally you're going to be tied into feeling everything too. And at first I wasn't sure that was true, but then I noticed when I was like allowing myself to remote view on my situation here, and then I was going online, and especially when I was paying a lot of attention to the videos of Ileana Star Traveler, my abilities would get enhanced listening to her, but I started having people coming into my videos that were scary, and then I would sleep, and I would definitely go to where the bad guys were and see what they were doing and wake up feeling what they were doing with the bloodlust and the whole thing. And it's like, okay, this is ruining my day. I get it, but I don't want to walk around noticing and feeling everything. It's bad enough that I can sense who's who and what's what if I go to the store or something, but I just can't, it's too hard to have to notice everything that's not pleasant around you, because then you're like, well, shit. So I turn it off. Just like today, I have a lot of my so-called abilities turned off. I'm not going to use them. I'm doing something else, and I'm fine with that. I'm putting it all into the growing plants right now, so that's good too, or whatever. But back to the David Wilcock thing and the Corey Good thing. So so this latest, okay, I've backed out of opinionating on this channel about stuff, and I've backed out listening to certain people. Since James Rink died, everything's really changed. It really has. And I decided the other day, like, this discernment thing, and who's telling, there's no law that says I have to discern anything. Really. I can listen to I can listen to a video. There's nothing that says I have to figure out who's telling the truth right away or not. So I still enjoy listening to all these people. I have a lot of time, so I listen. And I did hear a podcast, shortly a while ago after David passed away, where Jay Widener was on there. And I listened to Jay throughout the years off and on. Sometimes he says interesting stuff, but I have to tell you, being born and raised in that Hollywood thing with my Jewish family, I don't want to say a stereotypical thing about certain people, but when I see it, it's like family. Okay, there's that talk. When I hear Trump talk a certain way, it's like, okay, there's that talk. And I don't want to say it belongs to a certain group of people, but it certainly does. And so anyway, I've listened to Jay, all this and that, and because of my, so what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so he was on a podcast, and it was amazing how he spent the whole time, literally almost the whole hour, berating Corey and blaming Corey for corrupting David and mind controlling David into letting go of the $1 zillion contract he had with Gaia. And Jay's over there saying, well, if only Corey hadn't manipulated David away from Gaia, then David wouldn't have money problems and blah, 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 blah. And it was pretty telltale, Jay blaming Corey for corrupting David, making David sound like he didn't have a mind of his own in the first place, and would allow that, because that's the interesting thing. If you say, well, someone is just under total mind control by their so-called friend, and it might reflect badly on that person, indicating, oh, well, anyway, I listened to that, and I kind of lost respect even more for that whole thing. But I also saw, like, when Gaia was first developed, and I don't watch cable TV or any of that stuff, but it was kind of obvious to me that there's always a wing or, a little spit of Hollywood that's involved in producing these types of shows like Gaia and Ancient Aliens. I never watched Ancient Aliens because it looked too close to the commercialism for me to watch it. So I would hear, people speak through other means. I think I've watched a few Ancient Aliens episodes, but, they were always too Hollywood-like, everything. So that was just my opinion about that whole system. So when Corey was describing what was happening, it was like, yep, that makes a lot of sense. And when Corey talked about how he was invited to the Playboy Mansion, and so what he's saying now, or what Mike and and Corey are talking about in this video, yeah, I mean, I'll take sides and say I pretty much see and agree with the assessment of what's been happening over there with that whole scenario. And it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And I don't have to make up my mind about what I think about all these individuals because I don't even know them. I'm not in their life. I see them on the screen, including Cliff High, everybody else. We like to think that when we listen to them, we have to know who's telling the truth right away, but we don't. We don't have to know right away. Just take it in and have your opinion. But you don't have to figure it out like that very day who's full of shit and who's not. Because sometimes you'd be wrong, and I have to just put a word in for what's her name? The person who was making all those videos calling out people who were whatever. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to upload this, but I hope that describing that experience I had with seeing my own potential and seeing that Blue Avian, I call it the Blue Avian guys that had the same kind of look and the same kind of head, and it was just this, I don't know, Arcturian, I don't know what kind of being it was. I don't know if it was exactly who Corey's talking about and everything, but when it started getting made fun of, blue chicken and everything like that, yeah, I just felt like from the experience I had, no, these beings are real and they're above all this shit. And I saw one that's paying attention to my little life as well and letting me know it's there and that I could see it. And that's all I needed to get. And like I say, it wasn't like a dream or anything like that. It was like a real visual. So I just wanted to kind of put in my 2 cents there. I do support the I don't even like to use the word narrative. They want to control, like there's all these coined words like we want to control the narrative. There are hundreds and thousands of people talking on social media right now, so there isn't one narrative, but I definitely agree with Corey's side of this argument about what's been going on. And about David, at first I thought, well, maybe he really did pull that trigger on himself on purpose. You know, maybe some other parts of him just said, look, I'm screwed anyway, so I'm going to do this right here. And, you know, I mean, I thought maybe he did. And to this day, we don't know. I mean, I've listened to the 911 call, and I heard the voice of the cop who said, you know, he just shot himself, you know, and sometimes I know these guys are trained not to freak out in a moment like that. So I don't know what I think about, you know, if he on purpose did it or whatever. And then, you know, so I'm just like everybody else, just, you know, wondering and figuring out, would he have done it? Could he have done it? I didn't know David well enough to know any of that, but at first I thought, you know, yeah, he could have done it. And yeah, he could have talked for months about he would never do that, but then did it anyway. And I think about Robin Williams for some reason. I mean, I didn't follow his personal life either, but weren't we surprised at the way Robin Williams' life was ended? And it look like he did that's a thing that people have done to end their life the way he did? Or did someone come in there and do that and tie him up to the doorknob or whatever? So anyway, I don't know. You know, I really can't say I know. So I can't have a strong opinion about it. But yeah, I'm just putting in my 2 cents with that because that Hollywood scene, they'll reach out and grab anyone who's not part of their thing. And if that person has integrity and honesty and truth, they'll want it. And it's pretty too bad, you know, but that's a battle we're in. And anyway, Corey talks about how he's going to develop this true crime show, and he was encouraging people to make calls. And see, you know, here's the thing. I mean, I'm not inspired to even be active except for in this manner right now, talking on my channel. And why is that? Well, you know, it's a real hard decision to make. Like, you know, when I retreat and shut up all the way and stay off this channel, I mean, at times I've even thought, oh, let me just delete the whole channel. But see, now that the AI is going crazy all over the world, I think I'll leave this channel on because it might get deleted anyway by an outside source. And I'm still, you know, I've got, what, 300 so-called subscribers, if that's what they are. I haven't heard what Maltbook's doing these days. You know, now I got to go digging and find out what happened to all those millions of AIs that came out of Maltbook. They're talking about other things right now, but it's just a mess, you know. So anyway, so I just wanted to put in that personal little story that that's the first and only time I've seen that kind of being somewhat in front of me above everything. And by the way, that made me feel really good about living this 3D life right now with the fucking casino on top of the shit, and in this dreg life in our houses. Like, oh my God, you know, living in this situation where you have to pay your tax, you know, whatever, it's pretty bad. But yeah, okay, so I just said that on my channel, just declared it, just to put a little directional situation onto it. Before you know, the last 5 months I've just been focused on other things. I'm not even playing music. I don't feel like making videos. I'm just single-minded on just developing my little garden. So that's what that is for now. And I don't know if I'll upload this, but I hope I kind of got the story out. And just to say, I don't know, I've asked myself, well, is it like if you're listening to this video and you have abilities that you're not developing in the world, like you see yourself, maybe you could quit your job and do something more monumental or whatever, but you don't do it for certain reasons. So I don't even want to say it's right or wrong to develop or leave dormant or latent what your abilities and talents are. Personally, I'm waiting for a particular moment to unleash it all again, but it's like if, I'm recovering from 10 years of having given up some of those talents for having a day job that was helping other people. It's like when you're raising children, you might have to give up your other career for a while you do that. So that's what I've been doing. And now just coming back into the world where everything is different, but I have all my time, and that is really different. I'm very much enjoying that when I make up my own schedule every day. And I'm always motivated to work, but now I can actually call a day and let it go by. It doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm just rambling. Okay, you guys, just making that statement for better and not worse. Okay, bye.